Let's see if this works. Okay, guys, can you all see? Do you now see the chart there instead of my beautiful face? Yeah, I got that, JD. Sorry to scare y'all. Okay, good, thanks. So obviously everyone knows we had a trend day up. The major focus that I want to go on to is, first of all, what we did to identify the trend day up early in the morning. And then I also want to focus, I pretty much did not trade my trade plan today. And I want to discuss how I use my journal to recover from a difficult day, and then flip that over so that in the evening time, I'll be able to reset myself, right? And I don't turn this into a big traumatic issue where I lost a lot of money and or I even feel like I lost a lot of money or traded poorly and I should have done differently. So first of all, the first thing we identified is on trend days up, right? We did not have a large gap. Usually they start with large gaps. However, I did mention that this morning that oftentimes right after the news, that can kind of start, be the official start of our day. I missed a couple of really important points. I did not think that Yellen speaking would have such a big impact. We pretty much going forward have to consider it the same as Bernanke giving testimony, even though I don't think she's officially the chairwoman yet. I might be wrong about that. But basically, next time I see her speaking, I will be extremely cautious on taking any trades. I'm not interested in fighting the market all day or having a market trade beyond my ability to control my risk. So we started off the first 3 bars right here. Each bar was higher than the previous bar. We did not trade below the first 5-minute bar. By this point in the day, we had characteristics of a trend day up. The next part that we could look at to give us an idea of what was going on was the tick. Here is the this is the 0 line right here on the NYSE tick. Okay, and what you'll see is that we were predominantly positive all the way through the first hour. That's another sign of a potential trend day up. The next thing that was pretty easy to see out of the gate, right? You can see that we had this uptrend. It didn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out. And we held that all the way till the end of the day. And you can see we just bounced on that channel. The lack of rotation down from my first trade, I was struggling to get a 2-point rotation. Obviously, due to that lack of rotation, it was hard to get the 2 points. I was struggling, and I probably pushed way too far into the day. So what I want to know when I'm trading is I'm not concerned about the loss. My loss, I think total for the day was 6 points. I took one more trade in NQ that ended up being a loss at the end of the day, and then I ended up barely positive in NQ just by the hair of my chinny chin chin. So what I want to know is how to translate this and turn this into a positive experience. And the way I'm going to do that is by using my journal. And I journal exactly the way that Brett Steenbarger teaches in his books to use a journal, meaning I want to do 2 sets of journals. When I'm trading, right, I want to identify what's going wrong in terms of both my emotion, the situation that I'm in, and then the consequences, right? For example, identify trend day up, but I still did not pull back on pushing my trades to the downside, right? So that's my shorthand, right? At the end of the day, had opportunity to cover this trade, didn't take it, was still pushing for a downside move, moved my stop to net break even though I knew that we were in a trend situation, I was likely to get tagged out. And I ended up, instead of with a winning trade, a flat trade, right? So going through these series of trades and fighting it, if I just journal that down, that doesn't give me very much information. And what I want to find out is, how did I get to the point where I was fighting this trend day up all day instead of how I normally handle it, which is when I identify a trend day, I become very conservative as to how aggressive I'm going to be shorting, particularly on trend days up. And I'm going to be inclined to do less unless I somehow manage to get onto the right side of this trade. And if also, in addition, when I catch myself making mistakes early in the day, I tend to stop trading earlier with the concept of no one day matters and no one market matters, no one trade matters, right? So as I did my journal this afternoon and I went into it, So let's take the first situation. When I came in on the day, I kind of went through the scenarios and I said, well, if we can get below the white zone, which determines who has control, okay, that buyers were in control all day. We were unable to get gap fill. We had no trade below the first 5-minute bar, and I pretty much ignored all that because my theory was based on where we were in the overall balance, right? We were at the top end of the prior trading range, and I simply thought that from these levels that we could get a move to the downside. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that being part of the possible scenarios that are coming into the day. However, when I trace my day back all the way into yesterday I didn't feel well in the morning. I went to bed early. I did not do a trade review last night, and I didn't do my charts. I just did the very bare skeleton of the charts, and I got up early this morning to do those charts. The third thing was that I did not sleep well last night, even after getting up, even after going to bed early. I did not sleep well. The fourth part of that was I was in a rush this morning. I couldn't get my NQ chart finished in time for the market preview. So I was feeling rushed, and I wasn't able to take, normally in the first hour, the hour prior to the open, I will take 10 minutes and do breathing exercises just to slow my mind down and get my focus. So there's multiple things that I identified well before I got to the point of making one poor decision in my trading today that had I done any of those, identified any of those, obviously I can't control how well I sleep, but I can acknowledge that I didn't sleep well, that I am running behind, that maybe I should take it easy. So I'll note that, right? And I'll make extra special effort the next time. I'm only human. I might do that mistake again, but I'm going to try to be more aware of it and make progress towards not repeating that mistake. So those were the number one things that I discovered when I went back and kind of rebuilt my day. I wrote down what the consequences were of that series of decisions. In other words, rushing through, not taking time for meditation, not getting my charts, feeling rushed as we got to the open, right? And then all that led to was that I had this theory that we were going to had good location to roll to the downside. So the next thing I wanted to do in my journal is what would lead me to believe that? Well, when we were at the bottom end of the range, I kept preaching, we could see a move to the upside when we were down near 1830. And I actually made a tremendous amount of money on some calls that I bought when we were trading down at 1866 and we jumped up to 1885 the following day. And I had that idea in my head when I came. So I've also journaled that down. I had a preconceived notion and I pre-counted my dollars before I took my trades. And what that caused was, normally when I come in, I'm cognizant always of what the range could possibly be, right? I'm always willing to accept we can be 100 up or 100 down, and on extreme days we can be 200 up and 200 down. However, what I normally do is if I'm going to leave a trailer from a point I consider a good location where we might get an extension down or up, right? I let the trade fall that I initiate at the proper location. I let that trailer fall into its profits as opposed to forcing its profits. Instead, what I did today was I said, okay, we're at this zone. I know that we can get a rollover at this 1798, 1800 if we fail here, and I simply am not going to cover. Now, what was the first mistake in this area? Well, taking the trade here wasn't a problem. What the problem was, and I survived this by a tick, by the way, getting stopped here, right? The problem was we'd exceeded 25 minutes. I actually could have covered this trade profitably or flat, and I simply refused to do it. I simply believed that we were going to roll to the downside. I tweeted as much. I ran into the exact same problem. I'm going to spread this out a little bit so we can see it easier. I ran into the exact same problem right here. I actually captured this trade properly and caught the rotation down and was able to scale for 2 points. Now, if I just simply took my 2 points, I lost. I ended up losing on this stop here, and I may have the sequence wrong, but I believe I lost 3 1/4 here on the stop. I took the trade again. I could have simply taken 2 points and only been down 5 ticks on the day at this point, right? No big deal. And potentially, had I covered this properly and just simply closed the position when I was up, I had a potential of being up 3 points at this point in the day. So I keep a journal, and that journal goes poor decision making, right, through the course of the day. What was the poor decision here? The poor decision was I simply violated a 25-minute rule on a trend day up and ended up losing money instead of making money or break even on that trade. In this situation, I only covered half and moved to net break even, right? Ended up getting stopped on this trade and turning a 2-point profitable trade into a 0, right? At this point, I could potentially be up a minimum of 2 points had I simply followed the rules that I have written down. What is the consequence of that? Well, there's twofold consequence. First of all, I got agitated. Secondly, for me, since I do a lot of this publicly, I hate being wrong publicly. I really like, helping other people make money, but I do have somewhat of my ego involved, right? It would be BS if I said, well, I'm totally free of ego and I don't care what the results are. I do. I've committed to obviously being honest about my trades in and out that I do over Twitter, and I don't like reporting that I lost money. I actually hate it, right? So now at this point, I'm getting into in addition to having to defend the concept of moving down, which at this point clearly is not working, right? We're clearly in the trend day up, higher highs, higher lows. I'm defending myself. So I want to know what's going on behind that. What's going on behind that feeling? Usually if I'm fighting the market, there's a fear behind it. Well, the fear is at this point now that I've taken 2 trades, and now if the market rolls over, I wrote down my fear is I'm going to look stupid. I covered at the high. I'm clearly totally out of my zone in terms of how I normally trade. Normally I could give a damn what anyone thinks about my trading, and I could care less about whether I'd make 1 point, 2 points, or 10 points, right? I'm totally detached. So let's stack all of that up. I didn't feel well yesterday. I didn't do my homework last night. I rushed through the charts this morning. I didn't do my meditation, which I normally do. I'm out of my routine, right? I'm rushing into the meeting, and I'm acknowledging that we're in trend day up, and I'm purposely and willfully ignoring my cover rules in order to defend this concept, which had, thousands and thousands of dollars attached to me being right, because I figured if I can just get a 10 to 15 point rollover to the downside, and then from there, the schematics called for taking a rotation back up in the afternoon. This represented thousands and thousands of dollars for me on the sides that I trade. I was going to be king of the hill, and instead of going, oh look, I fell into some fantastic trades because I followed my trade plan perfectly, I found that I was breaking the rules of my trading plan so that I could have my theory about what the market should do come true. So let's continue with the day, because I also want to cover what I'm going to do in that journal as well. And let's go, and some of those thoughts, by the way. So there's 3 columns that go in this journal, okay? The first one is the situation. And then importantly, what is the self-talk that you're using in that situation? Per example, some of the self-talk that went on today was, when I moved this stop, I believe it was here, to net break even, some of the self-talk that went on said, boy, you're going to look stupid if you get stopped net break even after recovering 2 points, right? So whether that's true or not true, right, that thought went through my head. So I want to write it down and acknowledge it, right? Because that's going to lead me to understanding more clearly the motives behind my actions. And that's what I want to know, not because there's any kind of public self-flogging, so to speak, but because I know other traders go through this same situation. But unless you dig all the way back to the core of where the series of events started going wrong, you're simply going to write down, when I began this process for myself, I would simply write down, well, I failed to follow my rules, consequence, I lost a bunch of money, this day sucked, I'll start over again tomorrow. And that doesn't help me at all in terms of getting reset for the following day. Now I know I didn't sleep well, so I need to focus on winding down earlier, getting my work wrapped up earlier in the evening so I have time to relax, have a good dinner, do some exercise, and get to bed tonight so I feel good tomorrow. Make sure that I have my charts done before I go to bed, and I've done a thorough review of my journal before I go to sleep. I won't be anxious about whether I get the zones right. Clearly, the zones were spot on today. I was the one that was off, so I don't have to worry about going back and figuring out anything on the charts. I won't stare at them for hours. I'm going to do the zones just like I did every evening. The next part of that is this: after you get the self-talk, you go through the consequences. And Steenbarger uses an excellent example of this. I'm just going to use his example of how it's done perfectly instead of using my own. So situations, he writes, the trader that he's, our mystery trader or pretend trader. I thought I had a good idea. After I missed the morning trade, I doubled the position size to make up for the lost trade, right? So now, one of my philosophies is we never miss a trade, right? It's simply something that we have to learn next. And if we don't get this trade, it's a good news because the market's teaching us something new and it'll make us money the next time. So the self-talk that this trader would have is, this could be a great trade. If it goes for me, it would make my day. Maybe it was a good thing that I missed the trade. So again, now instead of, you notice that self-talk had nothing to do with what's going on in the market or what the market's doing. That trader at that point is simply defending his point of view, and even worse, he's ignoring all the evidence, just as I did, right? I clearly called out trend day up, and I proceeded to ignore it, right? And the reason for that is it's what our brains naturally do. We have a position, we have an investment in that idea, and now our brains are naturally going to ignore all information that says that our idea might be wrong. It's very natural. So the consequence, an economic report came out and the market moved against me. I didn't remember that the report was coming out, much like this morning. I didn't know Yellen would have such a big impact. I panicked and sold out for a several $1,000s loss. This put me in the red after a good start to the month, right? And so you'll have those three columns, and the important thing is you jot down shorthand notes at first. And notice, these aren't long, in-depth, page after page journal entries, right? It starts off one line, then it goes, when you have time to stop and think, a little bit deeper, right? And then in the morning, I'll re-review these. And then I put a fourth column in, and the fourth column is how I'll handle this in the future differently. What steps can I take in two fashions? First of all, what steps can I take today to have a better day trading tomorrow? And then the second step is there anything I can add to the checklist that I go through from time to time when I'm struggling in particular? Is there anything I can add to that checklist to make sure I get back on track quickly? Because that's what I'm most concerned about, is that I simply take my trade tomorrow the right way. And in addition, now I'm in the position where I don't even care if there's a big move tomorrow. All I want is my 2 trades for 2 points, and I want to get out of there, right? Because I want to get back on track for having a profitable week this week, and I'm in danger of not being able to have that. I'm down a total of about 8 points for the week, and I have 3 trading days left. That's not to say I'm going to force my trades. What that's saying is I want to get back on track quickly, so that if I simply follow my trade plan, I can end up with a flat to positive week, and then I can move on to next week, right? Because I've already had some damage occur this week. If I focus on my trades in the morning, the majority of my clients get anywhere from 8 to 12 points per week. On a great week, it's close to 20 points, right? Just focusing on trades before 10:30. I already know that I'm in the hole for the week, so all I want to do in terms of strategy, right? I don't want to press my trades in the afternoon will be part of my strategy. I want to focus on the morning time, and then I want to shut the thing down. So when I get to the end of the week, right, I won't ever remember that I missed this trading day. I guarantee in a month from now, I'll have a hard time remembering this day. But if I drill myself a hole the whole week and I have to work for the next week or two to get out of that hole, I'll remember it for sure. And I don't want to remember this day because there'll be so many more opportunities between now and then. In addition, with my down day being today about 6 points, my really good up days can range 10 to 20 points. If I'm really on fire, my trailers are really working, right? My average days, again, I'm getting anywhere from 2 to 6 or 8 points on an average day. So I'm not any further in the hole. There's another column that I'll keep in my journal, and that is the things I did right today. And I want to go over those, because this isn't about beating yourself up as a trader. It's about keeping yourself balanced as a trader and not letting yourself fall into a mental spiral that'll cause you to lose more money or feel anxiety about making money. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, what did I do right today? Well, I identified those trend day up. That's great. That's a very important skill. I don't want to get drilled tomorrow. If we have another trend day up, I want to identify it quickly. Number 2, I stopped when I was down 6 points on the day, and finally got through to me that I was fighting this market, right? I was able to surrender the balance of the day. And it was a good thing, because the thought that ran through my head when I decided to stop taking trades on this stop right here, right? Not only that, but it's frustrating when you get stopped literally to the tick, and then we roll back down for 2 points. That really, frankly, that's unenjoyable. So when I saw this, it would have been an easy opportunity for me here to react and go, oh, I knew that was a top. I'm going to wait for a little bit of retrace because now I know for sure we're going to go down. So I did not jump back into the fray. When I finally said we're past 10:30, we're past the prime time of the day, and look, if I simply had not made that decision, I could have fought this thing all the way up all day long. And the truth is, once most traders get so buried through the course of the day, very few guys actually catch this. As a matter of fact, what usually happens after you've gotten buried all day long, to most, in my experience with most traders I spoke to, is they finally go, well, we're going to close at the high of the day. Forget it. I'm going to flip and go long. So the fact that I was able to stop trading the ES and the damage was only 6 points, I'm going to consider a very big plus. The next thing that I did well, I took time and stopped and journaled, and I took time to stop and meditate this morning. And then the last piece was I had a client who works on day trading, and I contacted several, but the one who could switch his time into the day. And with my day trading strategy, trend days up were difficult to execute. So we took this time to go through what are the fundamentals of getting this trade done? How do we get this done properly? What are some of the pitfalls? What do we have to change on days where NQ is difficult? And I got to tell you, NQ provided a lot of good scalps today, but we just kind of looked, how would that set up and what would that look like? And so I ended up, instead of feeling sorry for myself that I was down, I took that and turned it into a positive, and I was able to help not just myself, but I was able to help another trader, which I really, really enjoy. So I was able to take a day where I was feeling negative about it by midday, and by the end of the day, really turn it around. And then the last piece of this was I was able to do a trade call here, and hopefully I'm going to be able to help y'all journal and turn your negative days into positive learning experiences so that you don't get run over next time. So just to sum up, there's no way, I don't care who you are, there's no way anyone could have known that we were going to run up whatever we did, 20 or 30 points today. Extremely difficult to know. We're at the very top of the range. NQ is not far from breaking out to new highs, right? The next part, once we've identified a trend day up, now I trade contra trade on trend day up. When I look at my numbers recently, trend days down have provided much better contra trades than trend days up. That being said, if I simply waited till 9:30, I did have one of my clients contact me, and he told me if he simply took every zone with the proper rotation today, that he would have actually, and this is prior to getting to the top zone, that he would have been actually down 2 points on the day, all zones combined, following the strictest of interpretations on the rules for trading these zones. And then had he simply taken the last zone when we arrived in it just before the last hour, or I guess it was just after the last hour, he would have actually told me he would have actually ended up quite nicely positive on the day with some trailers. So that was good to know too, right? Because you lose sight of that. So that's how I'm going to turn a negative day into a positive day, is I'm going to learn it, use it as a learning experience. My journal is a big tool to help me get reset. The other part of that is the journal is a very good tool when you look back and go, well, how did I handle other trend days? Where did I do this right? And I actually have a section in my journal specifically labeled trend days. And what I do is I photocopy my overall journal, and I drop them into sections: non-farm payroll day, Fed day, and now I'll have trend day. I have a trend day up, and then I'll add a when Yellen yaps day, so that I know how to make these adjustments. At any rate, I hope that helped everybody. If you have any questions, you're welcome to email me. Again, a losing day is no big deal as long as you don't make it a big deal. You've got to stop when you're drilling. Mentally, you can really get focused on one day, and it can really, really hurt your efforts overall through the course of the year. And that's really what I want to stress is there's no reason just to get annihilated on a day like today. Yet most retail traders, have awful days. And I know I've been doing this for 20 years. If I struggle on a day like today, many people struggle. And then also keep in mind the flip side, right? It's hard to keep structured to a trade plan where you're taking 2 points. And then if you're on Twitter or you're on StockTwits and you see people go, I bagged 20 points today, I bagged 15 points, right? And you go, all my trades are only for 2 points. And what often that leads to is going, well, maybe I need to change my strategy. If your strategy calls for you to trade that 2 points and that's what your data backs you up for, then that's what you should do. But if you want to change your strategy, go get the data. Go make sure you can actually catch it. Because the majority of people I speak to that contact me over trading, a lot of them live for these days. And they make 10 or 12 points on a day like today, and it's great. The problem is they spend the next 2 weeks trying to recapture this trade, and they give every single point right back. And consistency is the way you get wealthy in trading, particularly day trading. Very few people succeed, and consistency is the only key. So it doesn't matter what you do, just make sure you actually have an edge. If this is going to be your trading strategy, right, straight up and straight down, make sure that you have an edge that lets you catch this each and every time with minimal loss and maximum gain. And I haven't figured out how to do that yet. As soon as I do, I will let everyone know. The only trade I have is a zero tick, and that trade in particular requires that we gap up first, then we trade sideways, and as we're trading sideways, the tick come in, and when the tick hits zero, I take a long. That's the only way I know how to make this trade work, and I don't catch them very often. When I do, they pay nicely, but I don't catch them very often. I hope everyone has a great night. Guys, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me, tradingperform@gmail.com, or you can hit me on Twitter or StockTwits. I will repost this tonight on the blog along with this morning's pre-market trade. I don't know what you call it, review or preview. There you go. Have a good night, guys.